middle housing is where you take a single family home lot and you think a little differently about it. So instead of one single family home, you can put 4 or 6 or 8 units on that lot. So you definitely reduce like the yard size, but you also make smaller homes that more people can afford. And in Redmond, we are about 17 and a half square miles, not super big, but we also have this law in our state called the Growth Management Act, where we have boundaries in our city that you can't go out and build more. So we have these restrictions. And so what that means is we're really out of buildable land from a traditional sense. And so the only way we're going to get more housing of different varieties is to allow middle housing on different lots.
Welcome to An Honorable Profession, a podcast focused on incredibly talented people who've dedicated themselves to public service when their country and communities needed it the most. I'm Ryan Coonerty. Along with Debbie Cox-Bolton of the NewDEAL, I'm lucky enough to be your co-host. The NewDEAL is an organization that supports the next generation of American leaders. Check out newdealleaders.org to find out more. Most mayors would envy the opportunity that Redmond Mayor Angela Birney has. Global companies creating thousands of jobs, massive federal and state investments in infrastructure, running a city with extraordinary natural beauty. But those opportunities come with challenges. I talked to Mayor Birney about how she negotiates with companies whose market caps exceed those of most nations, the impact of AI, and dealing with a community that is changing. Maybe it's her career as a middle school science teacher, but I appreciate her ability to keep her vision amidst the chaos. Enjoy. Redmond Mayor Angela Birney, welcome to An Honorable Profession.
Well, thanks so much for having me here today. It's really exciting to be part of this.
We love mayors. I love mayors. But let's talk. One of the best part of being mayor is you get to love your city in a way that many people will never get to experience. So tell us about Redmond.
Sure. I mean, I do love my city. Redmond is a city of around 85,000 people. We're growing really fast. We have the fortune of being just outside of the city of Seattle. We have, beautiful weather, great, views of mountains and trees and trails. But we also have like an amazing economic environment. We are the home to some pretty big tech companies, including Microsoft, Nintendo is here. We also have Amazon, Meta. A lot of the big corporations are here. We also have a pretty incredible space industry. We produce the most low orbit satellites in the world here with Project Leo from Amazon and SpaceX as well. And we just have a really vibrant economic outlook for this community. We also are really fortunate that we have 4 new light rail stations and a light rail now that goes from downtown Redmond to downtown Seattle and beyond. And all of those things come together to make just a really vibrant, exciting community right now that I'm just very fortunate to be the leader of.
Yeah, I mean, it's a remarkable city. I think many of us have heard it connected to these tech innovative companies. Can you talk about what it's like to have a relatively smaller or medium-sized city that is home to so many of these remarkable global companies?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like I said, I feel very fortunate. A lot of communities don't have such a robust economic base and engaged businesses, but Microsoft and Amazon in particular have been really interested in ensuring that they're engaged with our community here. Microsoft has been a fantastic partner. They've built some infrastructure pieces for us around the light rail, and including connecting their campus, did some pretty huge investments in reinvesting in their campus as well. And Amazon has been a really great community partners. They fund some of our really good festival events and things like that. And so it's a great dynamic when you have a good relationship with those businesses, and including making sure that they're doing the right thing for the community and that the community can appreciate all the things that they do in keeping our community healthy.
What is it like negotiating on behalf of your city with these large entities that are, many, many times multiple, all the resources you have in the city combined? How do you prepare to walk into a meeting and to advocate for your community with those institutions?
Yeah, I think that one of the things I've learned over the years is you want to make sure that you have common interests. So find out like where those commonalities sit. So Microsoft has been a big proponent of community engagement for many years. They have a big giving program. And so that was easy to tap into that. Like, how can they support some of the city projects and their own community? Their own workers that live here and live around here. So, finding that nexus with them and really engaging on the concerns of the city and how we can partner better. And then think about ways that we want to make sure that they're continuing to serve our community better. We don't always agree, of course, but we always try to find a path forward to make sure that if they're advocating for something, it's not causing harm to our city, it's supporting our city. And we find that when we work with many of these corporations in like legislative issues with the state, we want to make sure if we're not on the same page, at least we're understanding where each other is coming from. And I think that leads to a really good relationship and a good relationship moving forward to help support what the city needs.
I mean, many city leaders would kill for the economic opportunities that you have in your community. Does it also put pressure on in terms of managing the growth and opportunities that you have being put upon you and that you yourself are creating?
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things I'm really appreciative of my community has been, for the most part, in the last, I'd say 10 plus years, really embracing this growth that we're seeing because of all of these opportunities. But there's, in communities, there's always some pushback. There's always concern. Are we going to lose our feel of what our town is like? Are we going to change too much and not be this great place to live? And one of the things I share with community is that, I love the city too. And I want to make sure we're continuing to be Redmond no matter how we grow or what we develop next. But we want to make sure that we continue to be a place where people can live affordably in a variety of different housing choices. We have great transportation. We want to keep working on that so people can walk and bike everywhere. We love our parks and our trees and our trails. So we always want to keep that balance going in. And I think that when you bring the community along, you can find that right balance and help them understand that what you're doing is actually enhancing what the city is, even though it is change.
You mentioned the transit projects. This is at a time when the federal government is pulling back from investing in transit. Can you talk about how you got those projects across the line and what kind of impact you're seeing in your community?
Yes, Sound Transit is a big light rail and other major transportation projects, major transit. And so over the years, over the last 20 plus years, we've been really fortunate to have great federal partners to help support all of this infrastructure. We have two fantastic senators, Senator Cantwell and Senator Murray, who have been very big transit proponents. We also have a pretty robust congressional delegation on this side of the mountains in Washington state with Rick Larson and Congresswoman Del Bene, who are also huge transit proponents. So we have a long history of them supporting us. And so they know the importance of transit and those investments. And so, when I see the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill come out, Rick Larson's like, it might not be everything we wanted, but it does keep transit dollars in there, and it does create an opportunity for us to continue to fund those things. But it really takes a long look at how we're going to fund these things. Cities, counties cannot do it alone. We really need the federal government to help support us in creating these opportunities to get people out of their cars and in a better form of transportation.
And how have these transit opportunities transformed the way people live and work in your community?
This is one of my favorite things that has been going on in Redmond lately. I would say, 20 plus years ago when I moved here, we didn't really have much of a downtown. It was still really a suburb. And through the investment of Sound Transit and those light rail stations and the light rail here, we've really seen our city change from that suburb to a city. We have seen intentional development around like our downtown light rail station where someone can get out of their apartment, walk across the street and get on a train and be in Seattle in mere minutes. And they don't have to get in their car. They don't have to get in all that traffic. we've really created this environment where people can really live close to these great transportation options, have like childcare and grocery stores and all these good amenities that you expect to have. And it's within walking distance, or you could ride your bike. Like, it's just created this amazing vibrancy in our downtown and other different centers in our city where we never had that before. There really wasn't a lot of there. And now we're really creating these great pieces of our community where people can really live and experience all that a city has to offer. And it's just within walking or train distance. It's pretty incredible.
Amazing. It's a good advertisement for all the communities thinking about investing in transit. You also mentioned you want to have a variety of housing options for folks, and ideally near transit. How do you think about housing when you have so much economic activity, when you have so many jobs? There must be incredible demands to provide housing. And then how do you ensure affordability and accessibility across the different levels that make a community strong?
We have been very intentional about allowing housing in our city. One of the things that was happening, 20, 15 years ago was that our population doubled because we didn't have enough housing in our city. When workers came in to Microsoft or other companies during the day, they were driving in from out, an hour, sometimes even more away. And really, that's just not an acceptable thing for a city to do. Like, we want you to work here, but we also want you to be able to live close enough so that you actually have some of your time left in your life to, enjoy with your family or whatever you want to do. So we were very intentional around, like I mentioned, light rail. We increased our density. In our neighborhoods, we have added in middle housing in the last 2 years that are, anyone can build middle housing in their neighborhoods. We have created opportunities for different types of funding so that we can get affordability in our community. We have, inclusionary zoning, which I've been told in some other cities it doesn't work, but in ours it really does. We get a lot of inclusionary zoning from that. We also have a multifamily tax exemption. We have, a whole bunch of different ways that will do pretty much anything so we can get not just housing, but affordable housing. One of the fun facts about Redmond is a single family home in Redmond, the average price is somewhere around $1.3 million. And I do not make that much as a mayor to be able to buy that, nor do many of my community members. Like, housing had become very unaffordable. And so by building these affordability measures into a lot of our housing, we're creating opportunity for people to buy at a more affordable level or rent at a more affordable level, keeping that vibrancy in our community. And so it's really a big part of my job is to make sure we have these different kinds of housing at different affordability levels so that people can live here and enjoy everything Redmond has to offer.
So, as I told you, our AHP listeners love the details. Can you talk a little bit about what your middle housing strategy has been, what your inclusionary rate is, how you've implemented this approach to housing?
Sure. I'll talk about inclusionary zoning first. So inclusionary zoning in our city has been in place for quite some time, and it's 10% of the units at 80% AMI, area median income. And that's been pretty successful in, building like housing developments or in apartments or a lot of different ways. So we've been able to get some actual affordable to purchase homes in some of our neighborhoods and also rentals. And all of that is run through a regional coalition that supports all of that. So we're real big proponents of that inclusionary zoning. And that wasn't a hard sell to our council, and our community appreciates that being out there. So that's one of the areas that we've created this affordability. Middle housing has been really interesting. We had allowed some of it in our city and, ADUs, and we just weren't finding a lot of people were taking us up on that. We are a city.
Do you want to just take us back to tell our listeners what middle housing means and what it looks like in a neighborhood?
Sure. So middle housing is where you take a single family home lot and you think a little differently about it. So instead of one single family home, you can put 4 or 6 or 8 units on that lot. So you definitely reduce like the yard size, but you also make smaller homes that more people can afford. And in Redmond, we are about 17 and a half square miles, not super big, but we also have this law in our state called the Growth Management Act, where we have boundaries in our city that you can't go out and build more. So we have these restrictions. And so what that means is we're really out of buildable land from a traditional sense. And so the only way we're going to get more housing of different varieties is to allow middle housing on different lots. So let's say someone has say a 2,000 square foot home that was built probably 50 years ago, but they're on a, say 8,000 square foot lot or so. They can go in and they can add an ADU or two, or they could, take the house down and build 4 or 6 or 8 units of housing. If they do 8, then we have an affordable unit on that lot too. So there's just a lot of different ways for people to create more variety of housing. And what's interesting, I think, to me, I'm in a city that was mostly built up during the world of suburbia, right? People lived in Redmond and they went to work at Boeing in the 50s or 60s or 70s. And so it was a really different outlook on, how to live and where to live, and really into the single family home, which is great. I mean, I live in one, I love it, but it's not for everybody. But when we go to this like middle housing model, I think about a lot of the cities in the country have middle housing already. They have townhouses and duplex and triplexes. And for some reason, as a community, as a state, newer, I don't know, we kind of got away from that different model of what housing could be. And so it's kind of exciting to see cities like mine embrace that kind of actually going back to maybe you're a little closer to your neighbors, maybe you share a wall, and it's kind of creates a really nice, tight, robust community too. So I like to think of it in that respect. And so when I go, anywhere in the country and I see these neighborhoods with a ton of middle housing, I understand why they're like, what are you talking about, middle housing? We already have that. And I'm like, yeah, well, we didn't. We were really single family home oriented. And now it's time for us to like kind of get with the program, what other cities are doing too.
That's amazing. Thank you for that explanation. I think it helps people envision like what these policies actually would mean in their community and their neighborhood. Can I ask, how did you find yourself becoming an expert on inclusionary zoning and transit and federal funding and all the different things you get to do as mayor?
Well, one, I love to learn new things. So I actually, my degree is in biology, which
Okay.
now I'm a mayor. But I love science. I love learning new things. I like having data to back up decisions. So I don't know, somehow in my brain, all of this makes sense, that I'm just continuing to learn about what makes the city wonderful. And I'm always excited to learn new things from people. But I never thought I'd be in this role that I'm in right now. I used to teach middle school science. It was super fun and exciting. And then I stayed at home with my kids, and I just wanted to be more involved in my community. So I did a pretty typical path of getting involved in PTA and other community engagement things. We had a schools foundation, and then I ended up on the city's Parks and Trails Commission. And the mayor at the time asked me if I ever thought about running for council. And of course I said no. But I started talking with friends and family, and I realized I'd always had a really keen interest in politics, national level, local level, state level. But I never really thought about how that would translate into being an actual elected official. And then I started to kind of look at the job of what is a council member. And I realized I loved the work that got done at the city level. I love looking at infrastructure. I love finding ways for our community to be a better place to live. And then my biology degree actually came in. We talk about, land use and water and stormwater and all of these things. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I actually know something about all of that. My college days are coming back to me. And so it was just like an interesting epiphany I had, where even though you would say from my resume that how could you get into this elected life, I think that's what makes this job so interesting is that I know actually quite a few biologists that are in elected life. I know quite a few engineers. I know quite a few people who, do have poli-sci degrees. But what makes it wonderful in this environment is that we all have different experiences, and then we can bring them all together and share our expertise to make our communities better. So that's kind of my initial track. And then that mayor didn't want to run again. And I was keenly aware that our city was at an inflection point where we could stall out and not want the growth that we were expecting to have and kind of reversed course, or we could move forward and really embrace the light rail that was coming, the opportunity to build more housing for people. And I knew that I could be that person to help guide the next path or the future path of this city. And that to me has been really exciting because I have a great community that is really excited about what the future holds and is really embracing these great, wonderful changes that our city has had. And I think I was the right person at the right time to help guide the city in that direction.
And I guess what's been surprising to you, both good and bad, about the role of a mayor versus being on council versus being involved in the community versus trying to deal with middle school students? I mean, there's probably some overlap in some of those experiences, but the mayor role seems unique. What's been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I do think some of my classroom management skills come into play. I do think some of my biology comes into play. I do think, just generally my love of my community and the community members definitely is here. I love the job of mayor because I really do get to make some pretty significant decisions. And of course, I need to get the council to support that. But I get to be the lead in this amazing city. We have about 800 employees, and I am the leader of them. And I think that is pretty fantastic to have this ability to be able to create this vision and have the staff support you in it and really get out in the community and do all the wonderful things that they do. I really feel very fortunate of that. Some of the harder things with this job is, you do get yelled at a lot.
Yeah.
It is, we're in a really challenging time politically. And I think that people don't necessarily know where to vent those frustrations. And I'm, the mayor, the council, we're the closest to the people. And so people show up and they are frustrated with, whatever might be going on, and they want to share that. Now, I will say most people can do so in a way that is constructive, every once in a while not. But I do think even any person who comes, like say to a council meeting and shares their experience or share their frustration, there's always a little bit of something you can get from them that helps you think about how to do my job better. Am I communicating properly? Am I getting out enough information? Am I taking into consideration their thoughts? Doesn't mean I'll always do what they want, but at least I take it in consideration. But this job is pretty great, mostly.
That's been my experience as well. I think that's a good description. I wonder, your citizenry is probably the most thoughtful citizenry per capita, maybe in the world, thinking about the impact of AI on society and communities and jobs and everything else. I wonder what you're hearing from your community and how you're thinking about AI as both an organization, but then more broadly in terms of community.
Yeah, we're at a really interesting place with that. We're an area that embraces technology. We have, these amazing corporations that have built so much in our world with that. But AI is a fascinating path forward of thinking about, from a city, I'll just take that first, from a city, how can we use that tool to better do our jobs? And we've delved a little bit into that. And as some of our partners will say, they thought maybe doing the work of government was a lot easier than they thought. So, but we've been we've been working with them on like a little bit of permitting work in our cities. And we both have learned a lot. One, AI is hard to do, even with great amazing scientists. And also the work of a city is very complex and nothing is that simple. And I mean, that's something that I would love to share nationally, that the job we do is actually very difficult and complicated, and there's no simple fix or simple answer to it. So, but we've been working with our companies to try to think about how can we do some of our simple things better. We have an AI translation service that we use at some of our meetings, so community members can come in and get services translated on like a little iPad, which is amazing. And then we have that permitting work we were doing, and we're always looking for ways to simplify things to make the jobs of our staff easier and the job that we do for the community better. From a bigger perspective, we have, yes, a ton of community members that work for these big companies and work in AI. And they're a little mixed. I mean, right now is an interesting time where there are layoffs happening and companies are like investing in more AI tools and fewer in human resources on people. And I think that makes for a really a little bit of unpredictable job market, a little bit of stress there. I think overall our community really embraces these tools, but also you have to think about ensuring that they're done in a safe way and not harmful to our community. So it's a very interesting time, but I think eventually this tool will sort itself out to be hopefully more productive for all of us. And I like to think that a lot of the tech jobs are still needed to do the work, even though there is AI out there.
Yeah, I think that's true. I guess following up, one of your jobs is to manage Redmond today. The other one is to think about what the community will look like, a decade or two from now. And given the chaos at the federal level, given climate change, given AI, given all these forces that seem to be pushing on all of our institutions, how do you think about the future of your city when you're trying to make policy today?
I think that's something that every mayor thinks about, like, where am I going? What is going to be happening in the future? And I think there's some basic things that, at least in my city, that I think about. I want to ensure that our planet is habitable in the future. And I want to do whatever I can as a city to kind of keep us on that path, like acknowledge that some of the, buildings create a lot of impact, and how can we reduce our carbon footprint as a city? How do we invest in our communities so that we're maintaining those good things? So, thinking long-term about that. I also think long-term about what is a community of the future? Like, where are we really going? And we have such a great head start with the infrastructure that we have invested now in our community, and thinking about what kind of lives people want to live. One of the things I hear overall from all of my community members is they love being outside in nature. And so you always want to make sure that you have those opportunities for people, even if they're living in a 400 unit apartment complex. They can go outside and they can see trees and the trails and then get where they want to go. So we like keeping that vision of what a city continues to be, even though there might be a lot of growth and other things happening, but you have to really keep those values, keep those trees, keep that park space, keep whatever it is. But all of those things make our communities so wonderful. And I think about that, if someone comes to visit Redmond, what are the things I want them to take a look at? One, love them come in on a train and see our beautiful downtown station. It's gorgeous. And it's such a great facility that we have. But also I would take them on a stroll and show them all of the dense housing we have. I would show them all the businesses that are coming up and the people walking around. And we take a walk to the trail and go to this amazing downtown park where we have all this space for community gatherings and things to do. So how do you keep that personal feel in these cities as they're growing, and knowing that those things are so important for health of all of your community members and making a wonderful community. So I think keeping those things in mind, like the bigger picture, long-term, holding on to the good things and moving forward on the things that need some progress too.
Yeah, I imagine, appreciation for nature and vibrancy will be an everlasting value in any community. And so if you can preserve those, that's a long way. You go a long way towards creating a long-term sustainable community. I just want to thank you for taking the time. I want to thank you for being part of NewDEAL. It helps to have leaders who not only are committed to the community, but are also experimenting with transit and housing and technology to be able to share those practices. And so we really value you, having you in the network.
Well, thank you so much. I so appreciate being part of NewDEAL. It is such a great opportunity to meet other leaders that are thinking about the future of their communities and being really innovative and creative in how they take care of these cities. And so for me, it's just such a great experience to be exposed to all the other different leaders that are part of this. And I'm very appreciative. So thank you.
It's our pleasure. Thank you. An Honorable Profession is a NewDEAL Leaders podcast. And because we keep things honorable, no tax dollars were used in the making of this podcast.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group.